Kia ora, my name is Damon and we are here to talk shit about Necromunda. Welcome to Wellywood Wargaming. In this episode we are going to be shooting right to the front of the new releases because now I've got my hands on Book of the Outlands. I was going to say Outcast there, but it's Outlands. Not to be confused with Outcasts. Now, just quickly, if my mouth looks at all red, it's just because I had one of those packets of extremely hot Korean noodles just now. So I'm suffering a little bit from that, but we're going to get through this anyway. So I'm going to kick things off in this gang guide with the Ironhead squat Prospectors. So I was super stoked, as you probably know if you've seen some of my other videos, about squats in general in 40k being introduced or reintroduced to 40k after a 20-30 year absence, I suppose. And we're starting to see through the Warhammer community that the Leagues of Votan, as they're now called, or the new version of squats, are going to be released pretty soon. I think in Kill Team first, and then as a full sort of army in 40k, which is really exciting. Now I must admit, I do actually prefer the look of the Leagues of Votan, the 40k version of squats, to the Necromunda squats, but I like them both. But the models for these guys are pretty cool as well, the Ironhead squats. But I've had a little time to read the book, and again, we're going into this a little bit blind though, because no one's really play tested this gang much yet. I certainly haven't, but I have done a lot of thinking and I've done a lot of reading on them. And I'm forming my opinions on how the gang actually is in the game. Now, I guess we'll start things off with, what are squats? I suppose to those of you who are new to the 40k universe, squats are abhumans. They're not necessarily a Xenos or alien race. They're actually kind of like Ogrins, but a lot smaller. So they're abhumans, or they're referred to as abhumans, and they're kind of allies of humanity in some ways. They're very short, they're dumpy, they're basically space dwarves, yeah. So they're very tough, they're very sturdy, they live a bit longer than humans, and they're perfect hard workers and mining dudes. In terms of Necromunda, the Ironhead squats have been there since the very beginning, apparently. And they are very sort of much estranged from their Leagues of Votan brothers or kin. And they've definitely been left to their own devices on Necromunda, and they've formed their own culture and their own sort of background as well. But they live out in the wastes. They're an extremely hardy people. They travel around in big land trains like they used to in 40k. And generally they hold their own pretty damn well, as you will see when we explore the gang guide itself. But in terms of where they're going to fit in the game, in terms of how they play and things like that, I think from the offset it's very easy to look at the squat list and go, wow, they're too powerful. They're not at all. They're very tough. They have incredibly good weaponry, but their stats are fairly average. They feel to me a little bit like Enforcers were, in that they do have some big downsides, and they aren't all that. They do have a lot of gear, but they're not necessarily the right gang to use it in some ways. Now correct me if I'm wrong with that. Again, this is all sort of just hypothetical really, because I haven't managed to actually play test them properly yet, but seeing as I'm quite experienced in Necromunda, I can form an opinion based on what I'm looking at with their weapons, their equipment, their strategies and whatnot. But getting into their sort of strengths and weaknesses, I think this is a good place to start. In terms of their strengths, squats are, of course, very tough. So they have a high toughness stat throughout. They've got decent mental stats as well in terms of their actual, characteristics of the gang. So they've got quite good willpower, quite good cool. It's not the best in the game, but it's pretty good. Another big strength is, of course, their weaponry. So squats are, the way that you would describe squats is, you used to describe Vansar as being the shooty gang. I would now say that Vansar are the finesse shooty gang. Squats are the Daka shooty gang. So if you're familiar with orcs in 40k, I would definitely associate the way that squats would play with that in terms of firepower and the amount of bullets that you're generally shooting off at your enemy. Squats are rapid fire. So where gangs do get rapid fire, like Orlocks and stuff, squats get it ×2. So squats are the rapid fire gang. They have all the firepower that you would possibly need to bring down anything in the game. So those are some of the strengths. They look cool as well, that's another strength. Some of the weaknesses now. So of course they could have been completely nerfed if Games Workshop had stuck to how squats were in terms of the bounty hunter rules. They would have had movement 3 across the board. I ran a movement 3 squat gang and it was dreadful as Venators. They are, however, movement 4 now, which is great. It does make them definitely much more playable. However, movement 4 is still a problem. Goliaths are movement 4, Gene Stealer Cult are movement 4, and if you're playing on dense 3D Necromunda terrain and not Ash Wastes terrain so much, it certainly inhibits your ability to get up and down platforms and stairs and whatnot quite so easily. It also means that you're not able to get into close combat if you need to quite as easily. I mean, there are ways to mitigate this, but movement 4 is quite slow, so they can be quite frustrating in that sense. However, they aren't a close combat gang, they are a shooting gang, so movement isn't quite as much of a problem on a squat gang as it is on a Goliath gang, for example. Other than that, the other stat that really stands out as a weak stat throughout the gang is their initiative. They generally have a very low initiative of a 5 up throughout the gang. That means that if you are playing on platforms and stairs, things like that, and you go prone, you're very likely to fall off them. It also means that you're not very likely to get out of combat if you need to. Things like that. Wherever the initiative stat is used, squats are not going to be very good at it, but that makes sense because it suits their short, stocky sort of nature. They're not the most agile fighters in the game. They're quite the opposite to Escher. Other than that, in terms of their weaknesses, I would say a big weakness, and the thing that I've really identified as the problem with squats, is that they're incredibly expensive in terms of credit cost. Now, of course, you can run them in a very minimalistic, or at least you can try and run them in a minimalistic way in terms of their equipment and war gear, but generally speaking, it is really hard to get high numbers of squats in a gang. You're really only looking at sort of 5 or 6 fighters most of the time, if that, sometimes 4. If you want to equip them with carapace armor like they are in the box, and like the models actually come with, that's 80 credits per fighter. It's not cheaper for squats, it's the same as it is for anyone else, and it's 80 credits for light carapace armor. Now, you could of course get a box of Caradron Overlords, or whatever those Sky Pirate Dwarves are called in Age of Sigmar, and you could use them with mesh armor or flak armor maybe, and save quite a bit of money that way. But the guns and the equipment are also really expensive too. They are very good, don't get me wrong, but they're also incredibly expensive. So even if you do try and go light with a squat gang, you're still looking at a very small bunch of fighters. Now, of course, they are quite tough. They do have good armor, so they will out-survive other gangs. But when it comes to bottle checks and only having a good call, not the best call in the game, you're going to be bottling out of games, and you're going to be losing rep in nearly every single game that you're in. I can pretty much guarantee it. The first serious injury you take with a squad of 6 squats, or a squad of 5 squats, or worse, is going to be a bottle check. And your call is usually 7, 6, 5. It's not amazing throughout, so that's something you need to think about. And that would be the same thing with Venators, really. Although with Venators, at least you do have the option of running much lighter with, less expensive equipment if needed to get those bodies in. You just can't do that with squats. The other thing that I would say is a huge weakness for squats, and it's a shame actually, is that they haven't really explored more flavor for squats. They do not have a super champion. They do not have a prospect. They do not have a unique mechanic for squats. Of course, they are similar to enforcers in that, or they are similar to any of the other non-house gangs, basically. But they feel a bit light. They've only got 4 different fighter types and 1 brute. They haven't got any unique hangers-on, in fact, as well, which is quite strange. However, if you are playing Ash Wastes, they do have a unique crew for your vehicles, which is quite cool as well. But they feel quite light. They don't feel like a fully fleshed out gang to me, and I feel like that's a bit of a shame. They missed the trick with that. However, I think there probably will be some unique vehicles coming out for squats. Hopefully we get a massive land train at some point. That would be really cool. But yeah, I just feel like they're quite a light gang generally. So are they fit for beginners? I think if you're new to this and if you're getting into Necromunda or certainly the Ash Wastes, you might have picked up this book. I don't want to compare them to any other gangs, but I think if you were to start with one of the gangs in this book as a beginner, start with Ash Waste Nomads, they are better, in my opinion. So again, that is my opinion. I love squats, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like they'd be quite an unforgiving campaign gang to start with if you're getting into Necromunda for the first time. So we're going to look into the actual gang stats and the way that the gang is formed, the different fighter types. Then we're going to go and look at the unique skills that are available to squats, which are quite cool. Some of the tactics, and of course, the biggest thing about squats that we need to talk about is their weaponry. So getting into it then, we're going to start with the different fighter types available to squats. Now there are only 4 fighter types. Like I mentioned before, you don't get a prospect, and you certainly don't get a sort of super champion, which is a bit of a shame. But they're not a house gang. They are going to be quite light. But the first one we're going to start off with, of course, is your leader. And this guy is called a Charter Master. Now your Charter Master is 115 credits. And for such a great stat line, that is an absolute bargain if you ask me. The leader here is excellent. Here are the stats. So we've got a movement of 4, a weapon skill of 3, ballistic skill of 3, so good at shooting, good at close combat equal. The strength of 3, which is average, but a toughness of 4. So that's where squats really excel, and that they've got lots of high toughness. It's a shame they're not toughness 5, actually. I feel like they should be. But they're not. The toughness 4. Still very high, though. This is the great thing, though, is they've got 3 wounds. So similar to an Orlock leader. In fact, I think the Orlock leader was the only other fighter in the game with 3 wounds out of the box. So the squat leader is now on par with the Orlock leader. However, he has higher toughness and lower movement. We have an initiative of 5 though, so that's the stat that really lets them down. It's not really a biggie. I don't think initiative is quite as important as a lot of people make out, but it is a problem. We then have 2 attacks as well, so they're okay in close combat. You haven't got the 3 attacks that an Escher or Goliath leader have. In terms of the mental stats, they are excellent. We've got a leadership of 5, a cool of 5, which is also excellent, a willpower of 5, which is superb, especially if he was a psyker, but you can't be a psyker, sadly, and an intelligence of 6 as well. So very, very good. They're very smart. They've got high willpower. They've got high cool. What's not to like about that? Now, of course, he's a gang leader, so he has the gang hierarchy leader special rules. He can also have multiple fighter cards, different equipment sets to set him apart as well. And he's got group activation too as well, just as your normal leader has. So no special rules for these squats at all. They don't have a special rule like a lot of the other house gangs do. In terms of his skill access, he gets a primary access to brawn, and leadership, of course, and shooting. Now, I would say that shooting is an excellent skill choice generally, but it's worth noting that they don't get access to their unique skill tree. The leaders, anyway, don't get Wisdom of the Ancients, which is the squat-specific skill tree. Only the champions get that as a primary. They do get it as a secondary, though. Now, I would say, based on what I was saying about the numbers here, if I was to run a squat leader, nearly every time I'm going to be taking Iron Will as a choice there, which feels boring, but just having that 1 extra on your bottle roll could be a huge difference to a squat Prospector gang here. So bear that in mind if you're running a very small crew, which you're going to be playing squats. Iron Will would be the standout skill for me there, at least at the beginning anyway. And it feels a shame because you really want to take those shooting skills, but it's up to you how you want to do it. In terms of the equipment, they can have, again, multiple fighter sets, multiple equipment sets, but they have no restrictions on their equipment either. They've got quite a nice spread of equipment here, so we're just going to quickly skim over it. We've got the Ironhead auto gun for 25 credits, the Ironhead bolt gun for 95 credits. So those are your basic weapons. Yes, 95 credits for a bolt gun, and it is a basic weapon. However, we'll explain what the difference is between an Ironhead version of a gun and a regular version of a gun soon. We'll get into that in a minute. In terms of the pistols though, we've got an Ironhead auto pistol, an Ironhead bolt pistol, an Ironhead hand flamer, an Ironhead stub gun. Now Ironhead stub guns are something I'd really like to talk about because they're 10 credits, but we'll get into this in a bit. but they're awesome. We also have a stone burner as well, which is unusual, and that's 70 credits. We've then got, for special weapons, there's only two different types. We've got an Ironhead Flamer and an Ironhead Melter Gun. An Ironhead Melter Gun. We need to talk about the Ironhead Melter Gun. And that is 155 credits for the Ironhead Melter Gun. So, but you'll see why. We then have, for heavy weapons, we've got some cool choices. We've got the Ironhead Heavy Flamer, the Ironhead Heavy Stubber, and a mining laser, without the word Ironhead in front of it, which is, I think, the first time that anything has come up so far without being an Ironhead version of a weapon. So it's just your standard mining laser. We know what mining lasers are like. They're a slightly less powerful version of a las cannon, but they are still scary. And that's 125 credits. The Ironhead Heavy Flamer, however, is 210 credits. So it's a lot of credits there. In terms of close combat weapons, they have got a circular stone saw for 25 credits, fighting knife, boring, a gem extractor for 50 credits, an Ironhead arc welder for 100 credits, power axe, power fist, power hammer, and power pick. The usual sort of grenades there, so you've got your blasting charges, frag, crack, and smoke grenades actually. And for armor, you have heavy carapace, light carapace, flak, and mesh. So again, all the models in the box set, I believe, do look like they have carapace armor on, so it would be a shame not to have carapace armor on all of your starting fighters. However, that's 80 credits each, so yeah, you're not going to have many of them. So I'm hoping that on another note, I'm just hoping that Games Workshop keeps the 8 or 10 squat fighters that you get in the box and doesn't split it into a smaller box just because of that. So we saw them do it with the Scum for Outcasts. Let's hope they don't do that with squats. Maybe just buy them now just in case. Anyway, so field armor, they can have conversion fields, refractor fields, and displacer fields, which are all really cool, but there's absolutely no point having those if you do have carapace armor, because carapace armor is generally kind of better in some ways. Of course, displacer fields are super fun. I like to use those. And you've just got your typical sort of equipment as well, so your grav chutes, Medicaid kits, photo goggles, etc., respirators, things like that. In terms of weapon accessories as well, you've got infrasights, monocytes, suspensors. So you do get suspensors on your house list as well, of course, for squats, and you get your telescopic sight there as well. So that is your Ironhead leader. We're now going to look at the Ironhead champion. So the next fighter type is your Ironhead champion. This guy is not called an Ironhead champion. He is called a drill master. A drill master. So this guy costs 85 credits, and his stats are as follows. Quite similar to the leader, just not as good, quite frankly. So he's got a weapon skill of 4 instead of 3, but his ballistic skill is the same. So he's better at shooting than he is at fighting in close combat. His strength and toughness are the same, so 3 and 4 respectively. We've got 2 wounds, 2 attacks, an initiative of 5. And we've got a leadership of 6, cool of 6, willpower of 6, and intelligence 7. So he's not quite as smart and stuff with his mental stats, but he's still pretty good. He's not amazing, but he's pretty good. Similar sort of mental stats to a Venator champion, actually. In fact, less smart to a Venator champion as well. Now he's 85 credits, as I mentioned before. He has group activation 1 and he has tools of the trade, so exactly the same as any other champion that you would get in the game. His skill access for primaries is of course brawn and wisdom of the ancients for this guy, so he gets primary access to wisdom of the ancients, secondary access to shooting. So it's a bit of a shame actually, because that's the guy that you really want to be taking the shooting skills on. However, you can't, so tough titties. Now, he gets more or less the same equipment as your leader. In fact, exactly the same equipment as your leader. I can't really see anything different on here. The same. He can even get heavy carapace armor like your leader too, as well as all the field armor too. And he can also get heavy weapons. So there's no weapon restrictions on this guy either. And there are no special rules for him at all either. So yeah, he's okay. You know, he's okay. It's really the biggest talking point. I'm not going to spend too long talking about these fighter types because there's nothing really to elaborate on. They have decent stats. They have good access to skills with sort of, you know, brawn, wisdom of the ancients, and shooting. But really, that's it. That's all I'm really going to talk about on that. The real bone of contention, the thing that we're going to talk about, which makes squats stand out the most in terms of their play style and everything, are the weapons. So we're going to get into the weapons shortly. But that's your drill master there. That's your champion. The next one, and this is your ganger type now. Again, we don't have prospects. We do have a juve type, but this is your ganger. Now these are very much like any other ganger. You can take a specialist at gang creation who can take special weapons. They can't take heavy weapons though, unlike Orlocks, etc. But these guys, you know, are exactly the same as any other ganger in terms of their rules. Now, the equipment that they can get is slightly limited from what your leader and your champion has. So they don't have access to heavy carapace armor, they don't have access to heavy weapons at all. And in terms of the close combat weapons, they're quite limited. So they don't get access, they only get access to the power axe, hammer and pick, fighting knife and stone saw. So far less options for close combat there. However, in terms of the basic weapons, of course, you get your Ironhead auto gun and bolt gun, which are both brilliant. And your pistols, you've got your Ironhead stub pistol, bolt pistol and auto pistol as well. And in terms of special weapons, you've got your Ironhead flamer there and Ironhead melter gun too. But other than that, very much the same equipment spread there. The last fighter type, and this is the one that I actually see the most value in, because again, if you want to save some money, I think having lots of juves might actually help. This is your juve. So this guy's called the Prospector Digger. This is your juve, and he's only 35 credits. So he's only 5 credits more than a scummer. However, his stats are nowhere near as good as a scummer, so that's worth bearing in mind. He has got movement 5 though, which is interesting. So for a squat to be movement 5, it's kind of cool. And he's also got an initiative of 4 up as well. But he's only got a weapon skill and ballistic skill of 5 pluses, which is pretty terrible. Strength 3 and a toughness of 4, so he's still got that toughness 4, which is excellent for a juve. So 35 credits, I think that makes it worth it. Movement 5 and toughness 4 is quite nice. However, weapon skill, ballistic skill are quite low. Mental stats wise, we have a leadership of 8, a cool of 7, which is average, a willpower of 6, which is slightly better than average, and an intelligence of 7 as well, which again is average. Now these guys are fast learners, so that means that they can level up at the less cost of XP basically, in a roundabout way. And in terms of their skill access, they get shooting as their primary. No point talking about secondaries, because secondaries just aren't really that accessible. In terms of the juve's equipment, here's where things get interesting, and here's where I think you're going to probably utilize these juves quite a bit, is that they do get access to basic weapons, so they can get the Ironhead auto gun and bolt gun, which is insane. Of course, the Ironhead bolt guns are 95 credits, so they're very, very expensive. However, they can be had on a juve. They're not going to hit a barn door, but if they do hit something, it's dead. Quite simply, you'll see why very shortly. But they do get the access to all the pistols, of course, because they're juves. So they get the Ironhead auto pistol, bolt pistol and stub pistol, which is, by the way, excellent. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Ironhead stub gun is probably my favourite weapon in the squat list, and I know it sounds silly, but I like simple things. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll keep going. Close combat weapons are very limited again, so we've got power picks, power hammers, fighting knives and stone saws. So not much choice on those. Other than that, we can still get carapace armor on juves for 80 credits, which is nuts. We can't get heavy though, so only light carapace armor, which is a 4-up save. It's still amazing. But do these guys really need that much protection? Probably not. Just give them flak armor instead and call it done. So that is your 4 fighter types highlighted for the squat prospector list there. The only other thing that you can have, and now we're talking ash wastes, is your vehicle crew. Now you can have squat dedicated vehicle crews, which are only available to squat gangs, which is quite cool, and they're better than your normal vehicle crews of scummers. But we're not going to talk too much about ash waste stuff here, because this is a Necromunda gang guide. I'm going to do a separate video about vehicles and whatnot at some point when I've actually really got my head around it, because I still find that there's quite a lot of stuff to read when it comes to vehicles. But the Ironhead Squat Prospector Gearhead crew is 40 credits, and these guys have a ballistic skill of 4, a leadership of 7, a cool of 6, willpower 6 and intelligence of 7. So basically the same as your ganger. They are gangers. and they get shooting as their primary as well. So this is pretty cool. And in terms of their equipment lists here, you can equip them with a vehicle, whether that is a custom vehicle, which is a variable amount of credits, a Ridge Runner for 95 credits, a Rock Grinder for 145 credits, or a Wolf Quad for 70 credits there as well. They also get access to the 3 different types of pistols that gangers get, and that is it. They can't actually have you know, any of the basic weapons or special weapons that you'd get because they're driving a flipping vehicle, so be a bit difficult if they did. In terms of their war gear, of course, they get bio boosters, filter plugs, photo goggles and respirators, so those things can be quite handy in the wastes, but that's really it. We're just going to move ahead and see if there are any other things that I can talk about before I get into the equipment lists now. So we just had a look at the fighter types for a squat gang. There are 4 real fighter types and a crew option there as well. And there wasn't a huge amount to elaborate on because, like I said, a lot of the fun when it comes to squats is really talking about their equipment and their weapons. The next thing we're going to talk about, though, is their brute. Now, they do get a dedicated brute for squats, and it's called the Vatajan Exo Driller. This guy's 250 credits, and he's quite expensive, and he's only available to squat gangs. He's basically a huge exosuit, like the versions of squats used to have in 40k. He doesn't look particularly... I'll show you the picture, actually. He doesn't look particularly like the original version, but just a big mining dude, a guy in a suit, basically. Now, this thing, honestly, I don't think it adds anything to the squat list, so I can't really see myself taking it. It's okay, but it's not as good as an Ambot. Yeah, I just think that, well, I'll read you the stats so you get the idea. Movement 4, weapon skill 4, so not very good in close combat, very average. Ballistic skill 3 though, so definitely more of a shooting platform generally. It's got strength 4, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 2 attacks, initiative of 5, leadership of 7, a cool of 6, willpower 6, intelligence 7. So okay stats for a brute, not too bad. It's better at shooting than some of the other brutes as well. And it's armed with a Vatajan fist, which is basically like a big servo claw, and a heavy flamer and seismic crusher, which is pretty cool. Now the heavy flamer, of course, it can move and shoot with this heavy flamer, so that's pretty cool. It's worth mentioning that the heavy flamer is not a Ironhead heavy flamer by the looks of it. It does just say a Vatajan heavy flamer. Oh, hang on. We'll look at the actual weapon stats for the Vatajan heavy flamer. It might have the special rule that the other squat flamer has. But other than that, it's equipped with light carapace armor as well. For plus 50 credits, you can have a Ironhead heavy bolter as well, which when you've got quite good ballistic skill, is definitely an option. If you're spending 250 on it already, then what's another 50? You might as well go for the full 300 there. That's the only upgrade you can give it though. It is a guard exosuit, so in a game that requires, or a scenario that requires, what's the word? Sentries. In a scenario that requires sentries, you can add him on top of your crew amount, which is really cool. So you can go above your crew amount if you're defending, because he's basically a natural born sentry. And he's also got a sensor suite as well. So this model treats the visibility rule as being 3 inches higher than it is, which does make more difference when it comes to pitch black rules, but also some of the ash wastes weather conditions as well. It's also got the nobody pushes kin around skill, which is a really, really cool skill actually. We're going to go into the skills and I'll explain what that one does. But effectively it stops you being knocked back. You cannot be knocked back at all, and you can't, I don't think you can be knocked off railings and stuff too, but we'll get into that when we actually talk about the skills. In terms of access though, it gets ferocity as a primary access, which is a great skill tree, but in summary, I think it's a very, very expensive luxury, like a lot of brutes are, and I don't think it really adds anything different in terms of playstyle to the squat gang, which I feel like really kind of misses a trick for me. I like brutes that actually add something different to a gang. This one doesn't for me, so I would say that's a miss for me. It's a cool model, so you could use it. It looks like the TikTok or whatever his name is, the guy from the second Wizard of Oz film, if you ask me. So don't paint it bronze, because that's exactly what it will look like. That's that. I'm not hating on squats at all. I don't like that brute. I don't think it's particularly good. Correct me if I'm wrong, you might love it, but it's not the best brute in the game. I think the Ambots are arguably a lot better, just because they come with better skills and stuff too. So there you go, we're going to look at the next bit now. So this video is going to end up being quite a bit shorter than some of your house gang guide videos because, well, firstly because I haven't really playtested this gang, so a lot of my opinions are based purely off paper. So I could be wrong on a lot of this stuff, but I'd really like to get the discussion going, and I'd like you to tell me your thoughts of the squat gang if you've got this book now. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get into the skills now. These skills are called Wisdom of the Ancients. Now every gang in the game has its own unique skill tree pretty much, and they have 6 of these skills, and some of them are pretty cool. Half of them are very campaign focused, which is cool, because we only really play campaigns here in Wellington, but if you're looking at just sort of skirmish play, then some of these are sort of redundant, I suppose, but getting into it anyway. We've got the where there's scrap, there's creds skill, which is the first one. In the receive rewards step of the post-battle sequence, as long as this fighter is not captured or in recovery, their gang earns an additional d6 times 10 credits, which, when you've got an incredibly expensive gang that's really hard to replace fighters in a campaign, then that's very, very valuable. It's similar to Fixer, which is d3 times 10 credits. However, this is a lot better because it's d6 times 10 credits. So very, very good skill. Seems boring because it doesn't affect the game directly, but it certainly affects campaign play there as well. So also it says note that this fighter does not need to have taken part in the battle to gain this bonus, so really, really good, that one. Definitely a strong skill choice. This is the one we were talking about earlier that you get on your Vatajan Exo Driller, and this is called Nobody Pushes Kin Around. I really like this skill. It's not exactly tier 0, but it's pretty good. A fighter with this skill is never moved as the result of a weapon trait being used or a skill. They also automatically pass any initiative test they need to take to avoid falling when they go from standing to prone whilst within half inch of a level. So they never fall off. So really, really good for if you are playing Necromunda and you're playing in dense underhive terrain as opposed to ash waste terrain. It's more handy for that. And yeah, it's pretty good. You know, you can't get knocked back basically, so if someone wants to hit you with a spud jacket and knock you out of close combat, all of a sudden you're still standing there going what? So it's quite cool. The next one is Chemical Bonds Never Break. This fighter may use a chem twice before it's removed from their fighter card, so again, it's only really valuable in campaign play, but if you've got that dose of friends on, you can use it twice. It's pretty cool. I can't really see much use in it myself because I'm not a chem kind of person, but it just means that they're slightly more resistant to chems and can use them a bit more. I don't know. It's okay, but it seems like a bit of a weird one in the bunch. The next one, number 4, is called Dependable Like Kin. This fighter ignores the unstable trait on any weapon they're equipped with and may re-roll ammo checks. So it's munitioneer and ignoring unstable, which is fantastic. However, off the top of my head, there aren't many unstable weapons in their list, if any. So that's pretty cool. But if they did get access to plasma guns on max, things like that, then you could use this and it would be pretty good. So that's really going to kick in more when you get to the trading post and actually get some unstable weapons. It's pretty good though. I mean, really, you're just going to get it for the re-rolling any, you know, the munitioneer side of things. So it's like a better version of munitioneer, basically. The next one is Stubborn to the Last. When this fighter is taken out of action before being removed from the table, they may immediately make either a shoot or fight action, even if they do not have a ready marker. So that's pretty cool. It's similar to what the Cyber Mastiffs do, I believe, in the game. They get to activate until the end of the turn. But yeah, getting another shoot action is fantastic, especially if you're armed with a Ironhead bolt gun or something that's equally killy, maybe even the melter gun if you're lucky. The last one is called There's Always Another Secret. When this fighter opens a loot casket, they add an additional d6 times 10 credits to their gang's stash, which is cool. If you use loot caskets in all of your games, then you're going to be getting in some extra money there as well. However, it does mean that you're probably going to be preoccupied with trying to get the loot crates instead of killing your opponent most of the time. So do think about that and don't sacrifice the juicy prospect of just killing everybody. instead of just going for credits. So that is your guide to the Wisdom of the Ancient skills. We're then going to look at the, well, you know what we're going to look at next. We're going to look at the weapons, right? So here is where shit gets real for the Ironhead squats, and this is where we're going to be talking the most about squats in general, because their weapons are off the chain. And this is the reason why you would play Ironhead squats. You wouldn't play them for their stats, you wouldn't play them for their models, you would play them for their firepower, and that's exactly what these guys bring. Like I said before, squats are the rapid fire gang now. You did have a gang that filled that role, which I would say would have been Orlocks with all their auto weapons and bolt weapons. However, Orlocks now look really pissy and funny compared to squats, because squats have double the amount of rapid fire than you would have if you were a typical Orlock fighter. So getting into it, we're going to look at some of the Ironhead specific weapons here. So the Ironhead auto gun is exactly the same as a normal auto gun, however it is rapid fire 2. So it still has the same ammo of a 4-up, and it's strength 3. It still has the same short and long range and a +1 at close range there as well. It just has 2 rapid fire. So you can get a potential 6 shots off with an auto gun. Now granted, these are more expensive, and they are more likely to run out because you are using more ammo dice, but that's pretty fantastic. I quite like that. Next up though is a little bit more terrifying, however this is 95 credits, is your Ironhead bolt gun. So again, exactly the same as a normal bolt gun, so 12-inch short range +1 to hit, 24-inch long range, 4 strength, -1 AP and 2 damage, and of course it's a 6-up ammo too, and it's rapid fire 2. So very similar to a Storm Bolter. It basically is a Storm Bolter, I think, except it's not scarce or anything. So it is rapid fire 2 though, which is incredibly good. So there you go. Moving on now, we have the, what do we got? Pistols actually next. So here's where things get quite cool. There's a pistol that I mentioned earlier that I really like, but the first one is the Ironhead auto pistol. Again, exactly the same as a normal auto pistol, however rapid fire 2. So when you think of that as a sidearm, you can use that in close combat and get a potential 6 shots off, which is very, very nasty indeed. The Ironhead bolt pistol, which is again exactly the same as a normal bolt pistol, however rapid fire 2. So you see the pattern here. It's worth thinking about. You're paying a premium for that extra rapid fire dice, but it is what it is. As they say, it is what it is. The next one is the Ironhead hand flamer. So this is like a normal hand flamer, however it has something called Firestorm. Now the Firestorm trait is a new trait. Basically it gives you rapid fire flame on the first target under the template. So if you're shooting a template at 3 guys, the guy that's up front gets much worse than the other 2. Basically. So it's pretty cool. So you use the rapid fire dice on that first guy, and that's how you do it. The next one is the Ironhead stub gun. I really like this because it's 20 credits, right? Sorry. Yeah, it's 20 credits. Oh, was it 10? No, sorry, it's 10 credits. Yeah, I believe it's 10 credits, which is actually really, really good for what this does. Now, the Ironhead stub gun has got a 6-inch short range and a 12-inch long range, which is exactly the same as a normal stub gun. It's got that awesome +2 to hit at short range, though. So if you give this to a Ironhead squat Juve, suddenly they go from a 5+ to a 3+ on their pistols. They're only strength 3, there's no AP, the damage 1, they're 4+ ammo, but they're rapid fire 1. So this is a stub gun, still with the +2 to hit at short range, with rapid fire. And the thing that makes them even better for me is that they're also plentiful, which is fantastic because you're likely to run out of ammo on these things. Having it plentiful means that you can easily reload at the cost of an action. For me, the Ironhead stub gun is fantastic. Just it's like an auto pistol but more accurate and easier to reload for the same amount of credits. So what's not to like about that? So I'd go crazy on Ironhead stub guns and give them to the Juves. I think that's the best way of doing the Juves. The next thing is the Stone Burner. Now this is a 2 to 4 inch range, so it's very short range indeed. It's a strength 5, -2 AP, 2 damage, 5+ ammo with melter power pack, which means that you can affix it to your back and get an extra weapon slot. And it's also got scarce and sidearm as well, so you can use that in close combat. It's pretty nasty. It does give you an extra attack in close combat as well with that power pack trait, which is quite cool. And that's that for the pistols. Moving on to the special weapons now. We've got the Ironhead melter gun. Now this again is exactly the same as your normal melter gun profile, so it is killy as fuck with a 6-inch short range, 12-inch long range, +1 a hit at short range. Strength 8, -4 AP, 3 damage, 5+ ammo, melter, scarce, and rapid fire ×1. So yeah, melter gun with rapid fire, let that just sink in for a minute. As if melter guns weren't bad enough already, suddenly we have 3 hits from a strength 8, -4 AP, 3 damage weapon. So very, very nasty. Again, very likely to run out of ammo though, and especially when they're scarce, you're not going to reload it anytime soon, but still very, very cool. And I think they were 155 credits, weren't they? So they're not insanely expensive, they're still very expensive. And then you've got your Ironhead Flamer as well, which is the same as a normal Flamer, except it's got that Firestorm rule, which is again rapid fire on the first target under that template. Other than that, those are your special weapons for your Ironhead squats. Now heavy weapons, now these get quite interesting. We've got the Ironhead Heavy Flamer, which is the same as a normal Heavy Flamer, except it's incredibly expensive at 215 points, I think it was off the top of my head. But this has got, you know, the Flame Storm as well, or the Firestorm, should I say, of 1. We've got the Ironhead Heavy Stubber here, which is 20 to 40 inch range, the same as a normal Heavy Stubber. However, this one has 3 rapid fire, which is just insane. So you're potentially getting 9 strength 4 -1 AP shots off, which is just disgusting, quite frankly. And you can spread those across targets if you've got a little group next to each other, which is really, really cool. Other than that, you've got the Vatajan Heavy Bolter and the Vatajan Heavy Flamer, which does indeed have Firestorm, like I suspected earlier. And the Heavy Bolter, the Ironhead Heavy Bolter and the Vatajan Heavy Bolter have Rapid Fire 3 as well. So 9 shots with a strength 5, 2 damage, -1 AP. Disgusting, just absolutely disgusting. Again though, these are all very, very scary, and you think, oh god, that's terrifying, I never want to play against this gang. But when there's only 4 of them, it's not that bad. And you've got a Cawdor gang with, I don't know, 20 guys or something. I would take the Cawdor gang anytime and put my money on it. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself again. Close combat weapons, we've got a few here. We've got the Circular Stone Saw, which I believe was 25 credits. This is a power pack weapon as well. It's got rending, which is quite nice. It's +1 strength, -1 AP with rending, only 1 damage though. But 25 credits is not too bad. The next thing we've got is the Gem Extractor, which is +1 strength, -1 AP and 2 damage on your power pack, which is also pretty cool for that extra attack in close combat. We then have the Ironhead Arc Welder, which is exactly the same as a normal Arc Welder, I believe, but it's just got on the power pack as well. And then, yeah, your Power Hammer, your Power Pick, your Power Fist, and your Power Axe. I really like the Power Fist and the Power Pick, personally. Power Pick is awesome because it's -3 AP and Pulverize. The Power Fist is just awesome because the stats for the Power Fist are +2 strength, -2 AP and 2 damage with Pulverize. So very, very nice, but also very, very expensive. So bear that in mind. The Vatajan's close combat weapon is a strength 4. It's not as strong as the Power Fist actually, -1 AP and 2 damage. So there you go. And that really is, in fact, all of the weapons for your squad prospectors there. So we're going to move on into talking about just a summary of the entire gang so far, I think. Ironhead squat prospecting gangs in Necromunda. What's the verdict? Well, I think it's a bit difficult. I really, really like them. I think they definitely fill a role in Necromunda. Being the new shooty guys, I think they are quite similar in feel to Enforcers. They've got high armor, they've got good weaponry, high damage output. In fact, the highest damage output in all of the gangs so far, I believe. But it's difficult because I really need to give them a playtest. I also really want to mess around in Yak Tribe with building some different lists for these guys, so I can't wait till Yak Tribe get these up so that we can have a play with them. But in the meantime, I'm going to build some lists on paper, doing it the old school way. Now, in campaigns, do I think they're going to do well? I think in the right hands they'll do really, really well, but I just think the real letdown for these guys is just how many you're going to actually fit in a crew. Yeah, those bolt guns are great. Yeah, those melter guns are great, but they're so expensive that it's incredibly hard to field in an actual gang. So I think that's the thing I'm really struggling to deal with in my head here, is just how to make these guys competitive all around. Maybe they're not. Maybe they just fill that role of being a very small gang of very, very elite, very, very highly armored and highly weaponized little guys. I think that's really the whole point with these guys. But I do feel when I compare them to the other gang in this book, the Ash Waste Nomads, the Ash Waste Nomads are a little bit stronger all around, I think, because they've got slightly better special rules with their equipment, and yeah, I don't know. I just prefer them. I think that's all it's coming down to, really. I'm not in a rush to play squats after reading this. It doesn't make me go, oh yeah, I really, really want to play them, because there are definitely other gangs that I would have more fun playing, I think. But don't let that put you off. I think they'll be really, really awesome. And really fun for those times that you do get so many rapid fire shots off. Really, really crazy. I think anybody playing against the squat gang is usually going to just look at it on paper and be really scared. However, in actuality, I don't think it's necessarily going to play out like that, because it's all very good and well having rapid fire 3 or whatever on heavy bolter, but when you've only got very average ballistic skill, do you know what I mean? It's just not, it's not really as scary as it actually is. So there you go. I think the way to beat these guys would be just going heavy on numbers and out-activating them and using templates and stuff. Again, they're not particularly competent in close combat. They're okay in close combat, so you've got that extra attack from the power packs, but you're paying money for that too. You're paying credits for that. So I do really think a close combat focused gang, if you close the distance on these squats, they're just going to be mincemeat, because then they can't shoot those rapid fire weapons and stuff. So an interesting gang. I guess you kind of have to compare them to Van Saar now, that Van Saar have always been the shooty gang. Van Saar are the shooty gang because of the high ballistic skill, not because of their weapons necessarily. These guys are the shooty gangs with the better weapons, but with the lower ballistic skill. So that's really how you got to look at it. Both gangs are very elite. Both gangs are very expensive in credit value. Who is better, Van Saar or squats? I don't know. I mean, the Van Saar have got their own special rules with the Cyber Technica and stuff, and they've also got the added bonus of being able to outmaneuver people with the surfboards and whatnot too. Lots to think about, lots to digest with this gang now. Of course, I'm going to follow this up very swiftly with a video on a guide to Ash Waste Nomads, I think, next. And then we are going to go and do the Book of Artifice next after that. And then I think I've only got 2 more gangs to do, and I've done the entire Necromunda playable faction gang guides. So there you go. I'm waffling on a little bit now, but this video was never going to be as long as any of the others. Maybe I'll come back to it when I've actually done some playtesting and do these again. But those are my 2 cents on squat prospectors there. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I'd really like to hear your views on this, so please do comment in the comment section as well. And continue to like, share, subscribe, and check out my Patreon too if you can. But yeah, thank you very much for that, and peace out.